All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Loycent Gordon, owner of historic Neir's Tavern, and I'm jumping on this live stream today to present some information that hopefully can help everyone that's watching this. And if you're not watching this live, I hope that it will help those that's going to watch the replay. You can feel free to share it, let people know about it. I think what we're going to experience today is some really good quality information. It's not just to present information, it's actually to prevent death, specifically death from drowning. Uh, Again, right now we have Shawn Slevin that's going to make a really great presentation. She's the founder of Swim Strong Foundation, who has helped well over 10,000 people to be better in the water, uh, create really great life skills when it comes to dealing with the water. So I want you guys to join us for really this really critical live stream following the tragic death of Malcolm Jamal Warner, who drowned after being caught in a powerful rip current during a family vacation in Costa Rica. Now, Shawn Slevin is really a big advocate for drowning prevention, so much that she founded this organization well over 10 years ago. And she's going to guide us through some things and how to understand rip currents, hearing exactly what happened, what she believed happened here, and what she has experienced with rip currents as well. And maybe we can help prevent future losses of lives. There's three things we want you to take away from this: how rip currents are formed and what put swimmers at risk. Second thing is why drowning remains one of the most preventable tragedies. And third, how communities and local businesses like Neir's Tavern can drive real change. And so that's what we're here. That's why Neir's Tavern is involved. We're not just preaching to come and have a burger and beer, although that does keep the doors open. We also care about you so much that we create a specific organization called the Neir's Ambassadors Club, and to really focus on different causes that affects all of us in different ways. So with that being said, I want to really introduce my dear friend, a huge ambassador for drowning prevention. Her name is Shawn Slevin. I'm going to bring her up on the screen right there. Shawn, how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little introduction, a little background real quick about the organization.
Thank you so much, Loy. Much appreciated, as always, to give myself and our organization a platform for helping to raise awareness about water safety, drowning prevention, and particularly for us here in New York City, we are an island. We're surrounded. We're a maritime city. And yet we see so many tragic losses year in and year out. And as you pointed out, 95% of them are preventable. So just a little bit about Swim Strong. We actually just celebrated our 19th anniversary. We have three streams of work. The first, as you might expect, teaching how to swim, teaching those people who don't know how to swim with good skills. And to date, we've taught 11,983, but who's counting, students so far. We've given almost $2 million in free swim lessons to families that have needed that help. Out of that group, we've graduated over 525 lifeguards, hundreds, if not thousands, of kids who went on to competitive swimming. We've also had 68 young men and women who joined the military, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Marines with our swimming skills, and another 48 who became first responders for the city of New York as FDNY, NYPD, and EMT with these skills. So for us, it's certainly about learning to swim for your safety, for your health, for your enjoyment, the recreational aspects, the competitive aspects, but also for the career aspects. And then beyond that, we have an educational program called KNOW, K-N-O-W, Before You Go. And we've now delivered that program to 102,000 students in New York City schools. This is not about swim lessons. It's about everything else. So it's focused on situational awareness of water. Situational awareness of water to really help all of us, whether we're swim skilled or not, understand how to manage the benefits and the risk of water. Because after all, with climate action now upon us, we will be seeing more and more and more water in our daily lives in the next 50 years ahead. And then the final piece is really legislation. So we've written a legislation to mandate the training of water safety in all of our schools across New York State. Sadly, it has not gotten out of commission yet, committee, I should say yet, but hopefully third time a charm. So we're going to push on it again. And that's Swim Strong.
This is amazing work that you're doing, Shawn. I do want
more about the tragic Rippa had this trip. We're learning more about the tragic death of Malcolm Jamal Warner, who rose to fame on The Cosby Show as Theo Huxtable.
It's the ugliest shirt I've ever seen.
The beloved 54-year-old star drowned in rough currents along this stretch of beach in Costa Rica.
It can be very dangerous.
Carl Collar lives near the Caribbean beach where the actor lost his life.
They have riptides here that can suck you out to sea, and that's what happened to Malcolm Jamal Warner.
There are reports that lifeguards were not on duty.
It's rare. You almost never see lifeguards at most of the beaches.
Red flags are often seen on the beach.
Theo, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Meanwhile, Warner's TV dad, Bill Cosby, is speaking out about the shocking death. He spoke by phone to CBS News national correspondent and weekend anchor Jerika Duncan.
What was Mr. Cosby's demeanor like?
He was obviously heartbroken by the loss. This is someone that he watched grow up.
What do you want people to remember about him?
He knew his lines during the rehearsals and that he was quite comfortable, even with the growing pains of being a teenager.
He really talks about admiring Malcolm Jamal Warner's hard work ethic.
Today, Kelly Ripa had this tribute.
The very first episode of this show, Malcolm Jamal Warner was a guest on.
We were talking about this yesterday. Yeah.
It's just so sad and crushing.
Teachers grade you on some weird things.
America watched Malcolm Jamal Warner grow up from the first episode in September 1984, when he was just 13,
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad.
until the end of the sitcom in 1992. The Jersey City, New Jersey native also had a successful music career, winning a Grammy in 2015. Warner guarded his private life. Since his death, photos of his wife and daughter, who were with him on the family vacation, have surfaced. This poignant video shows him dancing with the little girl. In this video, he's wearing a yellow flower she gave him.
No matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile.
so very sad. But our goal is to educate and to prevent. And so this moment, I'm going to bring Shawn Slevin on to go into the presentation about how do we prevent this from happening. Let's digest some of this stuff. Let's figure out how these things happen. Let's figure out some of the strategies and tactics to prevent people from dying. And it's not even just celebrities. We're going to talk about a couple things about, what's going to really move the needle. There was a great conversation I had with Shawn And I think it's going to be really, really important at the end of this. So stay tuned, stick in there, and we're going to get Shawn to go through the presentation, and hopefully everybody could learn something. Please share this with your friends and family. The replay will be available on YouTube so that we all can learn something. Shawn, I really want to thank you for being on today, and I'm going to see if I could bring your presentation up if I don't mess it up. And I also have, I must say, I have a few ambassadors on here in the Zoom with me as well. We have Richie Salmon, who's the president of the Ambassadors Club, and we also have Nancy Aguila, who is also here. She is a big advocate for ovarian cancer prevention and more awareness. So thank you for joining us as well. All right, so Shawn, can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can. Thank you. And everybody, this is going to be just a little bit of a taste of the program that we actually do in schools. So this will give you a bit of an overview of what that looks like, and hopefully you will not only enjoy it, but learn quite a bit from it and be advocates on our behalf in schools that are near to you, so that we can come in and continue to provide this to our students all across the city and the world. All right, let's rock and roll, Lloyd.
Okay.
So I'm not going to read the slides because you are fully capable of doing that yourself, but I will pick up little bits and pieces of each one to discuss. The most important thing to realize is that all of us, swim skilled or not, we are all subject to the possibility of a drowning. Even a good, strong swimmer. So just recently, there was an article about a lifeguard who drowned 2 days ago, dove off a boat, never surfaced. So it can happen to all of us. And it's so important to realize too, that it's not just the recreational water that we are all so aware of. It's what certainly I grew up with. I really never thought about water, honestly. For me, if I needed a drink of water, I turned the tap on. It was always there, clean and fresh and sparkling. If I needed to take a bath or a shower, in I would go. Never gave a thought to the water that was cleansing me. The only time I really did think about it was when I was on my way to a swim practice, because I was a competitive swimmer and then ultimately a coach. And so, yes, water played a big role in my life then. But today, we have to think of it much more broadly than simply the recreational aspect. We really need to think about it from an environmental and also a climate action point of view. And so here are some questions that you can ask yourself. And the first one is very poignant to me because I just reflected about the recent tragedy we had in Texas on that river where there were several camps. And that river was known to flood. Why on earth people would build camps on the banks of that river, I don't understand, but they did get a warning, an early warning of the likelihood of a flood that people chose to ignore. And then unfortunately, the accelerated warnings came in when everybody was asleep. And so it caused great devastation in Texas, many loss of lives. I think they are finally finding, as many people as they can, and that all could have been prevented if people evacuated. So, this is an issue where we think it's never going to happen to us until it does. And then perhaps we're in a situation that we can't recover from. So flooding is going to be very big in our lives. It already is becoming much more commonplace than we've ever experienced it here in New York City, certainly. We'll talk about the rip currents more and to understand how they form and how we can spot them and what to do if we get caught in them. And then ice, we're going to talk about ice too, because we're seeing more and more people fall through the ice because the ice pack is thinning due to our winters getting warmer. So lots of change is happening because of climate, even now, never mind what's in the works 50 years from now. And then our homes, looking in our homes, do you understand what it is to have a water safe home, particularly for toddlers? And we'll talk about that in a few minutes too. Thank you, Lloyd. You can move on. So this screen here represents a number of the drowning statistics. Some of these are familiar to you. Here in the United States, we lose 11 people on average per day due to drowning, and another 88 people suffer with water-based accidents. So many of those injuries are related to brain and spinal cord, even leading to paraplegia. So it can be terribly life diminishing and expensive if you get caught in one of these terrible accidents. And of course, the ultimate is to die to drowning. And again, 95% being preventable really should make you think about, what is it that we're not doing that can save so many more lives? What most of the kids find shocking in the schools when I ask about who thinks girls drown more than boys, and a series of hands go up, and vice versa, how many are thinking boys are drowning more than girls? And it's always a shock to find out that boys are drowning 80% to girls 20%. And occasionally there's a brave young man who will say, yeah, that's because we take too many risks. And he's 100% correct. Guys have this risk-seeking missile DNA. And yeah, oftentimes the other thing that's very interesting is that they seldom drown singularly. What does that mean? Well, it means that group of friends are together, they're egging each other on to some sort of foolishness. One of them gets in trouble in the water. Nobody wants to see their friend in trouble, so they go to try to help their friend, but they don't have the skills. So now instead of one person drowning, we have multiple drownings. So it really becomes a chain reaction. And again, we can prevent this. And I'll let you just take a peek at some of that other information, but there are so many places that we can find water and drown. It actually only takes 2 minutes and 2 inches of water for any of us to drown. Think about that. 2 minutes and 2 inches. Okay, Lloyd, we'll continue. So I raised the issue of water safety at home because what's happening here for us in the United States is that we're losing 400 to 500 of our toddlers every year due to drowning. It is now the leading cause of death for that cohort, that age group. And most of the children are dying in their very own homes. Not because they're bad parents, but because their parents don't have a context for understanding the risk of water in their homes. So you might think about the bathtub as being a big problem, and it certainly is, as are outdoor swimming pools that aren't adequately protected, meaning locked down, and the ability for little ones not to find their way in, which they're like Houdini. Little kids are like Houdini, and you have to watch them so carefully because they're hardwired for 2 things. They're hardwired to explore their environment, and they're hardwired to mimic their family members, including the pets. And that will become important in a moment. So in the home, besides the bathtub, the toilet bowl is another huge issue. I myself remember as a kid throwing my toy in the toilet bowl and then going in to retrieve it, bending over to try to pull it out. And of course, what's the heaviest part of a toddler's body? The head. So if a toddler gets upended and we don't see them, they don't have the muscles developed yet to be able to right themselves and pull themselves out. Remember, 2 minutes, 2 inches. That's all it takes. Buckets are another problem we often forget. We leave water in a bucket. Children are drawn to water like a magnet because it's so much fun. You can see yourself in the water. You can splash in the water. It's particularly for those children on the autism spectrum. For them, it's even triple the effect. Triple the effect. So we need to be so careful of the water. And then the thing that was a surprise to me, and I go back to mentioning little kids hardwired to mimic their family members, including the pets. Think of a pet's large water bowl. And again, that child's bending down, mimicking the pet, lapping the water up, and being unable to pull themselves out of the water bowl. So again, parents understand that they don't want their little ones putting their fingers in the electric socket. So they go to the hardware store, and for $3 they buy a little plastic plug. They can slip into the socket, and this way baby can't get their fingers in there. But they don't realize they can spend the same $3 and get a little plastic lock that can go on the toilet seat so the baby can't lift the lid and therefore can't get into the toilet. So things like this are what we want to raise awareness for, so that parents now put on a different lens as they look around their house and think, will my child, my grandchildren be safe in my home as it relates to water? Okay, let's continue. So we spoke, we started off really talking about the rip currents and how dangerous they really are. We have one of the most dangerous beaches in the Rockaways as it relates to rip currents. And we often hear the expression riptide, which is a misnomer. It's really a rip current. So the challenge is people get caught up in them because they don't know what to look for. And unless you're trained, how could you know? How could you know what to look for? I'll share a story myself. I hadn't been to the Rockaways in probably a dozen years. I had spent a lot of time in New Jersey with my family during the summers, and I was a lifeguard on a lake there. So when I wound up back in the Rockaways, I thought, let me reintroduce myself to the ocean because I hadn't been for so long. And now I'm looking for a calm spot. And I found one. I think, okay, this looks reasonable. I'm going to go in here and just ease my way in. Well, I have to tell you, I didn't even get to my knees. I was knocked off my feet and swept straight out. And what's the first thing that I did? Panicked. Because it was unexpected. And naturally, it's only human. When something grabs you like that, you're taken aback. You're totally kerfuffled. And fortunately, I recognized what it was. In about a minute, I calmed down, and then I was able to work my way out. But it happened to have been a very, very wide current, and it took me about a mile to swim out of that current and finally crawl up onto the beach. And I was as weak as a kitten. I was throwing up all the water that I had swallowed. I was a hot mess. And just thanking God that I survived, because had I not had the skills and the strength that I did, I probably would not have survived that situation. So rip currents, they're natural, they're normal, they are created when water gets caught behind a sandbar. And then the pressure just starts building up, and finally there's so much pressure it's like getting a punch through the sandbar, creating a hole, and that water flows back out into the ocean. And that creates the rip or the suck, where you get just sucked out. Rip currents do not bring you down, but they will bring you out, and they can bring you out several hundred feet. And then depending upon what's going on out in the ocean, whatever other cross currents there are, you can be swept up in something else and taken way, way out. So it's very dangerous, and you really should never swim where there isn't a lifeguard. The lifeguard is there to protect you and to help you when you can't help yourself. And you should never, even with a lifeguard, you should always have a buddy with you. Because if you get in trouble or your buddy gets in trouble, the other person can call for help and can get the attention of the lifeguard. But these rip currents are real. And where they've also formed now, talk about unintended consequences. In the Rockaways, they have started to put in what they call groins, Groins. They're jetties, but they're made of rocks. And they jut out into the sea, and the whole purpose of those is to soften the blow of the hurricanes and the storm surge that comes as a result of that. But the unintended consequence, it creates little rips around it, okay? Kind of a washing machine effect. If you get caught close into the groin, if you're swimming and it's too close, it will actually suck you in. So you want to stay at least 100 feet away from them. You don't want to walk out on the groins. They are slippery when wet and even when dry, because little marine creatures attach themselves to the groin and they have secretions. And so even if it's dry and you're walking on that, you're likely to slip back into that water, and you're in for a world of hurt, because you'll get bounced against the rocks and it's very difficult to break through. We call it a washing machine effect. You can get badly, badly beaten from those groins. So stay off them and stay away. But it also creates little rip currents So it's important that you ask your lifeguard if it's safe, and they will tell you if there's anything that you should know about the water conditions before you go in. Very important. Let's continue, Loy. So I mentioned a little bit about ice and why, we are talking about ice, because since our summers have warmed, our winters are warming as well. And we are hearing about people falling through the ice more because the ice pack is actually thinning. It's thinning. And so if you fall into the water through ice, you have about 10 minutes to get yourself out before you're in trouble, in terms of being overcome with cold in the water and potentially drowning. The key is to stabilize yourself and to make sure that you turn around, face the direction that you came from. Why? Because that ice was strong enough to hold you until a certain point where it wasn't. And then you fell through. So we don't want to continue in the direction that we were originally going, because that ice is weaker and weaker and weaker. So turn around and then get your elbows up onto the surface of the ice. Start kicking your feet until you get parallel to the ice, and elbow, elbow, belly, belly, until you get your whole body onto the ice, and then roll towards your original entry point. Don't stand up right away. If you spread your weight, you have less of a problem in terms of falling in. So you want to keep your weight spread until you get really close to where you entered. Then you can stand up and run and try to get warm again. But please, spread the word. Ponds, particularly our park ponds, our local ponds here in New York City, please, please, please stay off that ice. It is becoming deadly now. All right, we'll continue. So spring, yes, spring's flooding, but flooding comes from for other reasons as well. We are seeing much, much more water than we had been. There's even a phenomenon called sunny day flooding. which has absolutely nothing to do with rainfall, but everything to do with these super moons that are affecting our tides and our currents. It's pushing up the tide to the high tide mark, but then moving further, pushing further beyond, or trying to. But in some places, there is no other place for the water to go. And so it is forced up onto our roadways, our sidewalks, and into our basements. And we're seeing a lot of this in Southeast Queens and some places in Brooklyn. Even myself, I live in Woodside, Queens, with no water anywhere around. When it came to Ida, which is a little different than the sunny day, but with Ida was the first storm that turned inland, and she was responsible for 93 drowning deaths between Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. 13 of those people were my neighbors in Woodside, Queens, who were trapped and drowned in their basements. They didn't understand that when a storm comes in, you need to go up. They thought going down into their basement would bring them safety. It did not. Clearly, it did not. So now we not only have to worry about the rain that's falling down at us, but what is coming up at us as well, because our 125-year-old sewer mains cannot absorb torrential bursts of rain that we're seeing more and more and more of. And so we're getting this backfill up. So here, as you're looking at the slide, if you decide that you think the risk is worth going through floodwater across an area, please be aware that your car can float away with only 6 inches of water. And an SUV can be stalled out and floating away in 12 inches of water. So if that ever happens to you, it's a little counterintuitive, but open your car door. Let water in so it will sink your car down to try to grab the ground again, the tarmac again. And hopefully you can get some traction and get yourself out of there. But the best thing to do is turn around and not drown. Don't even go through it. Don't forget that the flood waters are covering what's underneath there. You can't see what's happening to the road underneath. And flood water destroys tarmac. So you won't even know if there's a massive hole that has developed, sinkhole, has developed as a result of this flood water. You won't see it until you're in it. Not a good place to be. We'll continue, please. So I'm sure that everybody who sees these pictures will remember this was from Ida, okay? September 1st, 2021. That storm that I mentioned, first time ever that a storm came inland, created this waterfall in the subways. Even most recently, with the storm that we had just, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, created that kind of a waterfall in the subways. And, you know, people, amazing. I keep thinking this woman is going down. I don't know where she's going. It's crazy because there's water up to your chest. Where are you going? But this is becoming the norm for us. Can you imagine? Who ever would have thought that? Let's continue. So this is just a little bit more about us. By all means, you can reach me at my email address down on the bottom if you have specific questions that you want to shout out to me and you can't do it here. Feel free to send that along. We have a lot of resources up on our website. Also, take a look there. But our world truly is changing. We are seeing more and more water in our world, and that will only continue for the next 50 years, and who knows beyond that. Thanks for taking a look at the presentation. I can't hear you, Loy. Still can't hear you.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
Yeah, it seemed like we had a little feedback for some reason for the first like maybe 15 minutes.
Oh,
So we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But I was able to fix it. So, Shawn, I have a couple more like little questions for you. Dig a little deeper, and in terms of rip currents, I'm still saying tide, but in terms of rip currents, because you know right now this is the peak of swimming season. This is where everybody's jumping in the water. Everybody want to have a good time. Everybody's want to try to get out a little bit deeper and take a lot of risks because it's summer. Let's have fun, right? But as we see, summer tends to have the highest, and correct me if I'm wrong, highest deaths by drowning.
yes.
So, you know, tell us a little about rip currents specifically. Like, how do they form? What type of beaches are prone to have it? Is there something with the terrain? You know, like that if we step in the water, we more likely to say, hey, this doesn't feel right. So maybe this is not the safest thing, or do we watch it? Like, how is the terrain set up so we can kind of get a heads up before committing?
So that's part of the challenge, Loy, is we can't see the terrain because it's underwater. We can't see the bottom. And that's why it's so important to really talk to the lifeguards who are watching a particular beach, because they do know the topography, meaning the terrain under the water. So they know what's there. They know if it's slopes, how it slopes, if there's a drop off, if there's boulders or sandbars. They know this. And so you want to check with them really before you go in the water. They also know the water temperature. So think about this. The ocean is generally 30 to 40 degrees colder than the outside air. So depending upon, you know, your sensitivity, you could have a little bit of a shock getting into water that's that much colder than your outside air temperature. But the reason they form is part of it is the topography, the terrain under the water, and the other part is the fact that the sandbars, which are formed by the tides, they are not fixed objects. They get formed by the tides and broken down by the tides. But in the process of building up, water is trapped behind them. And more water comes in, and as more water is coming in, that's building a pressure behind that sandbar. And eventually there's so much pressure that it's like getting punched through, and the water then goes right through that hole, and it creates that sucking, that rip going back out into the ocean that is so powerful, so powerful. Again, I didn't even get to my calf, honestly, never mind my knees.
Wow.
I was starting to walk into the water, and all of a sudden it was like whoosh on my back, and off I went.
Wow, that's yeah. This is it. That's why you said it doesn't take a lot of water, right, for this to affect you in such a dramatic way. Whether it's sweeping your feet from under you, or maybe falling and drowning, or washing a car away with 6 inches or 12 inches, or SUV. Water is a very very dangerous thing. So I do want to also, as I go along, kind of get questions as they come along. I see someone on Facebook is asking, I'm trying to decipher here.
Just give me one second, Lloyd. I want to just point out one other thing before we leave this topic of like how are the riptides forming.
Yes, go ahead.
The other thing that forms them is storms that are actually happening in the Caribbean, 1,500 miles away.
Really?
Yes, they are affecting the rip currents on our beaches.
So are you saying that if more storms are happening in the Caribbean, we are potentially getting more riptides up here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And stronger. Depending upon the strength of the storm, that's going to affect the strength of the rip currents here too.
Wow, that's amazing. That's eye-opening. I didn't realize that. Can you I got there's two questions. I'm going to get to Nancy as well. Well, I want to ask this question. Can you explain some of the myths about escaping a rip current, right? You get hit, like what are we supposed to do? And what are the myths and what people actually do?
Well, I'm not so sure about the myths because I think a lot has to do with your personal experience. I shared what mine was. Here was a strong lifeguard. I was at the top of my game. You know, I was a competitive swimmer. I was very, very strong, and I got taken for a ride. Too sweet. And like I said, barely survived to tell the tale. So these are very powerful waters. When you first feel that tug, the best thing to do is to relax and float on your back. And what you'll feel in a little bit of time is that pulling motion will break. It will stop for a couple of seconds, a couple of, minute or two. At that point, you can flip over and start to swim parallel to the shore. What you're looking to do is find the edge of the current. As I said, in my situation, it was a very wide current, and it took me over a mile before I was able to get out, to swim out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very wide current. So sometimes they are very wide, sometimes they're much more narrow. But get onto your back when you're feeling the tug, flip over, and if you can, swim parallel to shore. When you feel the grip coming back, flip again back over onto your back. Again, if you have a buddy, hopefully that buddy is, able to wave and try to get the lifeguard's attention, or somebody else who, is close that might be able to help. These are very powerful currents.
That's really eye-opening. I feel like I never knew anything going into this, and now I have so much information. But I also see we have some members. One of our ambassador, Nancy, has a question here. I'm going to bring her on screen. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, Shawn. So my question is regarding the teaching of this program to children. Your presentation scared the heck out of me. And I know you teach from elementary, probably up to high school, hopefully, maybe even beyond. How do you gauge getting this information to them seriously? And of course, they're going to be different at different levels without scaring them of never wanting to go in the water, especially the young ones.
Yeah, it's a great question. So this program, we kind of flex from 3rd grade to 12th grade. The younger grades, we leave the materials with the teachers because those children, they need a softer, to your point, they need a slightly softer approach, and one that is not jammed into a 45-minute
yes.
time frame, right? But where they can really take their time, go through topic by topic, and a little bite at a time, and ask questions during that. I think it's a much better learning situation for the younger ones. But I will tell you that even at the 3rd grade, some of these kids have seen a lot. Too much.
Yeah.
Right? You wonder, where is their childhood? Because they are seeing things that I wouldn't want to see, as a young person, and I'm no longer a young person. But it's upsetting that they are so aware, right? So if that's the case, that they are so aware, we don't sugarcoat. I tell the story of myself as that strong, powerful lifeguard who was top of her game, top competitive swimmer, really strong. And look how I got tumbled around. Right. And, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. So and true. That's the important thing, is that people know. So what am I going to be looking for? Even I don't see all the rips. I can spot several, but not all of them. What is going on under the water? And that's why it's so important. It's not just enough now to look out your window and see, oh, it's a beautiful, hot, sunny day. I'm going to go to the beach. And what I used to do was literally dump my stuff in the sand, be stripping off, and I would hit that water before I'd even put my towel out, right? But now I would no more do that. I would be first listening to what's the local weather, what's happening down in the Caribbean. I want to know that too, because I told you our rip currents are being affected by what's happening in the Caribbean. And then I'd make sure I'd stop and I would talk to that local lifeguard and I'd ask them, what is going on in this water that I need to know about? Because the best day out in the water is the day that we make happy memories and return home safely again.
Well said. Well said. I love that. I love that. It's so true. You want to have happy memories and go home and say, wow, we had such a great time. And you don't want to say, hey, we had to rush someone to the hospital and I hope that person's going to make it. So people are really enjoying this presentation. Barbara says concise, detailed information was very easy to follow and held my interest throughout. So well done, says Shawn. So great job. And with that being said, we only have a few minutes. I also want to give a little plug to Swim Strong. Could you really tell us a little bit more about how people can support Swim Strong and the work that you do? Just remind them.
Sure. So obviously money is very important because it's the engine that drives all not-for-profits. But for us, our swim lessons are under market cost, which is $1 a minute at market rate, to be as affordable as possible to as many people as possible. But we know that even that is too much for some families, and so we have our scholarship fund. So a lesson, half-hour lesson, 8 times over a 2-month course, $180, $22.50 basically per lesson. If you can support in some portion, either pay for one lesson, pay for a series of lessons, that would be wonderful. That would help us get another family member in the water. And we work with youth and adults. And we in particular want the adults to swim, because I know that if an adult sees their child in trouble in the water, the first thing they're going to do is run to try to help that child.
Yes.
They don't have the swimming skills either, or the knowledge.
Right.
Now we have 2 people in trouble in the water.
Yeah.
So we want to get the adults to have the skills and the knowledge so they can reinforce with the young family members, for sure.
We just have a comment, and I'm going to read this comment because it's really important. I want you to speak on this. Stacy Francis says, this live stream needs to be in every school. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're getting this information out?
It's really, we do write to the different principals, but I don't know how much of it gets seen by them, because, the school administrators are very, very busy. So a lot of it does wind up being word of mouth, or a superintendent may have a good experience with us and then get to one of his or her colleagues and say, look, you need to bring them in. That's actually what happened to us with Brooklyn High School South. We have a great relationship with that superintendent Prayer, and he made sure that we got into every one of his schools. And sadly, the reason was because he lost 2 of his young men to drowning in previous years. So we wanted to try to stem that tide. And so, for all of you who are listening or about to listen, to be advocates for us in your local schools, please. That's what's going to get the administrators' attention. Everybody's well-meaning, but overwhelmed.
Yeah, well said. Can you tell us, how can businesses like Neir's Tavern be part of the solution?
So, good news, but again, not the great consequence that we had wanted. We generally plan for 20,000 students a year to deliver this program. It costs $5 a head to deliver the program. And so we had coverage for those 20,000 kids through the city council. We're very grateful to the speaker and the speaker's initiative for supporting our educational program. But again, because we had such great success with Superintendent Prayer, we kept pushing on. And so we delivered the program last year to 36,000 kids.
Wow.
So we have a little bit of a gap, 16,000 kids times 5 to fill. So if we can get individuals, companies, to make a contribution, whatever's meaningful to them, that's covering a child in the classroom, that we're able to get this information to. So yeah, we could use a little help there for sure.
Definitely. And we we tried our best as well. I mean, I see a lot of the fundraisers that you do. I know that you did something at Neir's as well. Didn't you? You did an ambassador event, right? Can you
Yes, well,
tell us
actually,
about that?
Cecilia hosted us,
Oh, okay.
right? And she brought us in, and she had the beach towels, and it was a really fun event, and we raised several $100s that way too. So it's all good. It's cumulative. Sometimes people feel, well, I don't have a lot of money, so I don't want, what's my $5, my $10 going to do? I just won't do it. And yet, that $5 covers one child in this educational program. That $10 covers 2 children. So everybody can make a meaningful contribution. And that's how it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
It takes all of us coming together to support not just my initiatives, which, yes, are life-saving as well, but thanks to the ambassadors at Neir's Tavern, there are a number of phenomenal organizations that we equally support because they're deserving.
Right.
They're deserving, and we all, again, need to do something so that we can support each other.
Right.
It's all meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, this is very, for us, we're a small tavern. We don't have all the resources in the world, but we're just using what we can to help amplify the message. And if our audience can hear something that resonate and maybe can give a little bit more, or maybe volunteer or get the word out to their people, even if you don't have any money, I always tell people sometimes being able to amplify the message is oftentimes more powerful than you trying to donate, $10 or $20, so money you don't have. Because if you get it out to 200-300 people, and each one of those, donate $20, now you have a lot more money. So we can do it. Find what you can do and do it, and that's it. I think is important. Well, this has been truly.
Actually, Lloyd, if we have just 2 minutes,
yes.
What I want to do is revisit the conversation that you and I had. And I'd be very interested to know what our friends, online, how they're thinking about this. So we were talking about the fact that
so I just want to preface, we have a couple more minutes. If it's all right, we can go a little bit over, no problem. Just wanted to give a heads up. But that point that you were making, it's really powerful. So we're going to try to finish off with this, which is, I think it's an important conversation. So thank you so much for reminding me about that, Shawn. Go ahead.
It's just, how do we move the needle is the real question, right? So we have notable people who have lost their lives due to drowning. And yes, they get a lot of press around it. And people, particularly with Jamal, I mean, so many people grew up with him. He was like a brother to many people, right? But we don't really see an activity that counterbalances that. So, for example, we don't see an increase in people taking swim lessons, and we certainly don't see a reduction in drownings.
Right. So I'm gonna cut you real quick, because this is a very, very important point. Okay. Malcolm Jamal Warner, unfortunately, is not the only celebrity to pass from drowning. Is not the only person. And we doing a lot of this advocacy. We hope so. Maybe we need to do more. And so the question is, is it working? Is the education that we provide, is it enough to see a decrease over these years? And I'm asking you, Shawn, to look at your 19 years, with Swim Strong Foundation and all the work you've done and all the people you've trained, which is help. But in the larger scheme of things, when you take all the statistics, has it been working with the celebrities that passed, and we're all affected and very sad, with the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people we teach how to swim? Are we on a decrease in the swim related deaths? What's your take on that?
So I would say no. And that's actually why we created the educational programming, because swimming lessons are not enough. You have to have the context. You have to have the knowledge and the skills. It's not sufficient to have just the skills, because then you don't know what you're applying it in. So that's why we started Know Before You Go. And we do see data that the material is sticking. So we do a pre and a post quiz, and we can see the uptick after the training. And now we're going to go back to some of those schools and deliver the same quiz again. We'll call it a retention quiz, and see what they remember after 2 years out, 1 or 2 years out. And then we'll be able to answer your question, Lloyd, if this is starting to have an impact. The education, situational awareness and knowledge of water.
Yeah, I mean, it's very disheartening, but it should also motivate us to take more action. And like you said, the skill of swimming is just not enough anymore. There's a education component that needs to be sent out there to people. Like you talked about, I think it was a lifeguard that drowned, a lifeguard. So he had the skill of swimming, but maybe there was some knowledge gap there as well. So these two components here make probably for a more effective drowning death prevention program. And I'm glad that now you're focusing on that as well. And hopefully the next time we get on a live stream like this, we have more positive news when it comes to those statistics. Crossing fingers.
That's what we're hoping for sure.
All right. So any final words? Richie, Nancy, you guys are on with us. If there's anything now, you can let me know before we do a sign off. So with that being said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, people that's watching live, watching the replay, we have fun, we have a good time, we eat burgers, we drink beer, we have all of these things. We do karaoke for a cause and raise money for different causes. We have our ambassadors club, that people with different passions to help to represent something that's important to them and to the larger society. But at the end of the day, we do have to come together and teach each other a lot of these things that are happening. I think we sometimes get isolated, but our goal is to actually do things like this to bring people together, to share information. And I think if we do that, we have a better chance of not only just preventing drowning, but get a more stronger community, more cohesiveness for a better society. Even if I have to interrupt the promotion of burgers and beer to come to Neir's Tavern, I'm gonna sneak this in there because I think it's more powerful than trying to sell you a buy one get one.
But this is the power of Neir's in particular, because community conquers all, right? This is the power of Neir's. It's not just about the burgers and the beer, although they're pretty good, I gotta tell you. It is about helping the community, strengthen the community, build the community, and we are the community extended, not just those that are local to the burgers and beers, that they can get because they live close by. But you have pointed out that we have supporters all over the globe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So something's working Neir, that Neir's is doing, Loy, and that's thanks to you and kind of your vision to move this accordingly. And we're along for the ride and looking to help you in any way possible. because
Thank you.
more good is to come.
Right. Thank you. And that's it. That's it. We're closing out. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for participating. Please make sure you follow Swim Strong Foundation. Go to her website, Google everything, make a donation, or at least share the website so that we can get more information out and she could do her work as well. My name is Loycent Gordon, owner of Historic Neir's Tavern. On the call, we have some Neir's Tavern ambassadors, part of our support community, a board of advisors, and also advocates and ambassadors for amazing causes from ovarian cancer to mental health and all these things that's important to society. So I'm really, really grateful that we have such a close-knit team like the Neir's Ambassadors Club. And if you're interested, you can always reach out and we could discuss your application. And like I always say, on the road to 200, together, community conquers all. Neir's for years. Thank you guys. Have a great evening.